Aloha. Mahalo for spending a little time with me today. You know, I've been thinking for quite a while about making these videos. Not because I think I have all the answers. And certainly not because I think people need another person on the internet telling them how to live. There's already plenty of that. The reason I finally decided to do this is because over the years, I've noticed some patterns. Patterns in my own life, patterns in the lives of people I've known, patterns I've seen working with land, livestock, and people. And the more I paid attention to those patterns, the more I started realizing that a lot of the struggles we face may not be as separate as we think they are. And I guess the way this all started for me wasn't in a classroom or anything like that. It was just life, real life, watching things I thought were solid slowly start to shift. Not all at once, just little things at first, the kind you almost ignore because everything still looks okay on the surface. A family doing fine, but you can still feel the tension under it. A person saying that they're good with God, but their peace is gone when life gets all messed up. Somebody working hard, making money, but their body's breaking down and they just call it normal. And I kept noticing something. It doesn't usually fall apart from one big event. It's always the small, weak spot that was already there. That's where the Rotten Fencepost principle started forming in my mind. Not as something fancy, just something I kept seeing over and over and over. You build a fence out here, you know this. Most people think it's the boards or the wire that matter. The pretty part, the straight lines, the paint. But anybody who's really worked land knows it's the post that carries everything. And if one post starts to rot, you might not even notice that right away. Fence still stands, animals still stay in it, everything looks normal, but pressure builds in that one weak spot. Wind hits it, rain keeps working on it, time keeps doing what time does. And eventually, the whole line starts to lean, not because everything was bad, but because one part wasn't strong. And I started thinking, that's not just fences, that's people, that's families. That's even faith. We can be strong in one area and think that carries everything. But life doesn't really work in separate compartments like that. It all leans on each other. What happens in your body shows up in your thinking. What you believe deep down shows up in your decisions. What you steward or you neglect shows up in your peace or lack of it. And I'm not saying this from some perfect place. I've lived enough years now, seen enough breakdowns, my own included, to know that this is just how it goes if something underneath isn't steady. So this series is not me trying to teach something new for the sake of teaching. It's me trying to put words to something I wish somebody had clearly shown me earlier. And there's a way to look at your life where you stop guessing what's wrong on the surface and you start asking where the post is weakening. Because if you can't see that early, you can fix a lot of it before it falls. And that's really where we're going to go next. So what I want to do now is slow this down a little, because I don't want this to just stay as something you hear and think about and then move on from it. I want to lay it out clearly, not in a complicated way, just in a way that you can actually see it. So what I'm doing and going to do next is break this down into something simple, almost like looking at the structure underneath what I've been talking about. And as we go through it, just keep in mind, this isn't separate from life. It's just putting words to what life has already been showing us. All right, let's get into that now, and welcome to this podcast.
Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm really excited you're joining us for this one because, well, we are getting into something that I think is going to hit incredibly close to home for a lot of you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely universal feeling.
Right. Have you ever felt just fundamentally off balance, but you can't figure out why? Like, you look at your life and on paper anyway, everything should be totally fine.
Right. There are no massive crises going on.
Exactly. You haven't lost your job, your family is okay, everyone's healthy. But underneath all of that, there is this undeniable creeping sensation that things are just, well, heavy.
Yeah. And we usually just brush it off, don't we?
We totally do. We blame our jobs or, our lack of sleep or just the relentless pace of modern life. But today's source material asks a really fascinating question. What if we are completely misdiagnosing that tension?
Which is such a paradigm shift.
It really is. What if the exhaustion you're feeling isn't the actual problem, but just a symptom of a hidden structural failure? So we're unpacking some excerpts today from a framework called The 3 Posts of a Steady Life. And it argues that life isn't a series of isolated buckets, but a single, highly tensioned system.
And that bucket analogy is where so many of us go wrong right out of the gate.
Oh, for sure.
Because we naturally try to compartmentalize our existence.
Yep.
We imagine we have a work bucket, a health bucket, a relationship bucket, and maybe a finance bucket.
Right. And they're all separate.
Exactly. And if the work bucket is overflowing, we assume the health bucket over in the corner is perfectly safe. But this framework introduces a completely different mechanical visual. It asks you to picture life as a continuous fence line.
A fence line. Okay.
Imagine a long, heavy wire stretched super tightly across 3 main wooden posts. If one single post leans just a couple of inches, the entire fence feels it. Right. You could be standing 30 feet down the line staring at a perfectly straight piece of wood. But that wood is experiencing this unnatural, violent pull because of a lean happening somewhere else entirely.
Which completely alters how you diagnose a problem. Because if I feel a strain in one area of my life, my first instinct is to obsessively examine that exact area.
Naturally.
But if life is a tension wire, it's like a guitar string.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
If the tension on one end is wrong, the whole instrument sounds out of tune. So the strain I'm feeling right now might be originating from a completely different post. Let's look at the first of these 3 load-bearing pillars, which the framework simply calls health.
Yes, the first post.
But I want to clarify something right away, because we typically treat health as a binary state, like you are either in a hospital bed or you are healthy. But this framework defines health differently. It's about weight-bearing capacity.
It's a vital distinction.
Yeah.
It really is. It is not about whether you are, running triathlons or home with the flu. The text specifies it is your day-to-day physical reality.
Right.
Your baseline energy, your sleep quality, your chronic stress levels, essentially is how your body physically carries the demands of your life. And when that capacity drops, it doesn't just make you physically tired. It fundamentally alters your cognitive function.
Let's drill down into that mechanism for a second, because if let's say I snap at a coworker during a meeting, my brain immediately writes a narrative to explain it.
Oh, always.
I tell myself, well, that coworker is incompetent, or this project is doomed. I don't stop and think, oh, my physiological stress levels are peaked and my body lacks the metabolic energy to regulate my emotional response.
Right. Nobody talks like that.
Exactly. So why is it that we are so incredibly quick to brush off our own physical depletion? Why do we blame our patients on other people rather than realizing our health post is cracking?
Well, it comes down to a biological concept known as allostatic load. When you experience chronic low-grade stress, so maybe sleeping 6 hours a night instead of 8 for a month straight, or you're constantly bracing for the next stressful email, your body is continuously pumping out cortisol and adrenaline.
Just constantly running hot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And over time, that system just gets exhausted, that cumulative physiological wear and tear that is the allostatic load. And here's the really critical part from the source. High allostatic load literally impairs the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, for patience, and emotional regulation.
So you lose the physical buffer, and suddenly normal daily friction hits your core a lot harder. You haven't actually changed your values as a person, but your physical depletion is quietly rewriting your personality.
Precisely. You are structurally weakened.
Hmm.
But because humans have a profound psychological bias toward externalizing our problems,
Right.
we blame the coworker.
It's their fault.
Yeah. We treat the social symptom. We use words like stressed or busy as shields, Almost like badges of modern honor, honestly. Instead of recognizing that the first load-bearing post is starting to lean heavily into the dirt.
Okay, but wait, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say my physical health is mathematically perfect.
Okay.
I'm sleeping 8 hours a night, my allostatic load is practically zero, I eat kale every day, yet I still completely fall apart the second a project goes south or a client criticizes me.
Right.
If it's not a physical depletion pulling the wire in that scenario, what's dragging the fence down? That implies a completely different kind of structural failure.
And that brings us perfectly to the second post in the fence line, which the framework calls the inner foundation, or scripture.
Scripture.
Yeah, but in this context, it's redefining that word completely. It is not necessarily about religious texts or reading verses. The author defines scripture as what you actually build your life on inside.
Okay.
It is your functional belief system when life presses on you.
Let me challenge that slightly. What is the difference between a functional belief and just a regular belief? I mean, I can tell you what my core values are right now, and I genuinely believe I hold them.
The difference is pressure.
Pressure.
Yes. When everything is going your way, when the weather is fair, your bank account is full, people generally, like, you don't actually need an internal foundation. You are essentially just floating on favorable circumstances.
Sure, it's easy to be nice when everything is great.
Exactly. A functional belief is the absolute baseline you default to when the money dries up or the relationship ends or the diagnosis comes in. It's what holds you steady when nobody is watching and there are no external rewards for behaving well.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. You can fake this second post, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to push back on this idea that holding up an artificial front is inherently bad. In psychology, there's a legitimate strategy called behavioral activation.
Yeah.
It's colloquially known as fake it till you make it.
Right.
If you act confident or you act resilient, your brain eventually catches up. So why does this source argue that holding up an artificial inner foundation is structurally dangerous? If I look entirely put together on the outside until life actually presses on me, isn't that a valid coping strategy?
It is a valid short-term coping strategy, but it is a disastrous long-term structural strategy.
Right.
Because of a concept called ego depletion. Willpower and conscious self-regulation are finite cognitive resources.
Okay, they run out.
They absolutely run out. If your inner foundation is hollow, but you are using sheer willpower to present a calm, resilient exterior every single day, you are burning an immense amount of cognitive energy just to maintain the facade. You are constantly overriding your actual default.
I see. It's like those old Hollywood movie sets.
Yes.
You walk down a dirt road on a studio lot, and it looks like a sturdy, beautiful, historical town, but you go to lean against the bank building, and you realize it's just a piece of painted plywood held up by a single 2x4 in the back.
That is the perfect visual.
It looks amazing on camera, but a strong gust of real wind will knock the entire town over.
And that is exactly what happens when ego depletion meets a real crisis. People can maintain the illusion of a strong inner life through sheer willpower for a surprisingly long time.
Right.
But when a real storm hits, and the framework operates on the guarantee that severe, unavoidable pressure will eventually arrive, that painted plywood won't hold the tension of the fence line.
It just snaps.
It completely snaps. Your default reactions, your deepest unexamined fears, your actual coping mechanisms, those are your true inner foundation. If those are weak or hollowed out, the pressure will instantly expose the rot, and the whole system starts to violently lean.
Which requires a level of brutal self-honesty that, frankly, most of us actively avoid.
Oh, completely.
We don't really want to test the plywood. We'd rather just keep painting it and hoping for the best. But let's look at how that internal reality maps onto our external day-to-day actions.
Let's do it.
Because if the second post is our internal belief under pressure, the third post is the invisible scaffolding connecting everything together. The framework calls this third pillar stewardship.
Stewardship, yes. The text defines this very broadly as how you handle what has been placed in your hands.
Okay.
It is the daily external management of your life.
Yeah.
It includes money, obviously, but crucially it points to time, relationships, micro-decisions, and daily habits.
So what does this all mean for you and me? Because I'll be honest, this feels like the most easily ignored post of the three. Stewardship sounds a bit like, I don't know, accounting.
It does sound dry.
It really does. Like, if I have a heart attack, the health post breaking is obvious. I am in the emergency room today.
Right.
If my inner foundation shatters during a major life crisis, I might have a full emotional breakdown.
Right.
But stewardship, it lacks the dramatic tension of the other two. Why do we so drastically underestimate the daily management of our habits and time compared to health and belief?
We underestimate it because the feedback loops are entirely delayed. This is where we run into the psychological trap of temporal discounting.
Temporal discounting.
Yeah. Our brains are hardwired by evolution to prioritize immediate rewards over future consequences. So, if you mismanage your time by doom scrolling for 3 hours every evening, your life doesn't collapse that night.
Nothing explodes.
Right. If you mismanage your relationships by slowly withdrawing from your friends because you're quote-unquote too busy, you don't feel the crushing weight of loneliness immediately. The source makes it sound like a slow leak in a tire. It's the quietest of the 3 posts.
Oh, I like that. So it's not a sudden snap. It's much more like technical debt in software engineering.
Oh, explain that.
So when developers are rushing to push out an app, they might write messy, inefficient code just to get it working.
Okay.
It doesn't break the app today. The app runs fine for the user. But underneath, the code is so fragile and tangled that 2 years later, a tiny routine update causes the entire server to crash. You accumulated invisible debt that eventually had to be paid.
That is exactly how poor stewardship operates. You can be strong in your functional beliefs, and you can be physically fit with a low allostatic load, but if your daily management is off, things still start to shift.
You're just racking up the debt.
You are actively rotting out that 3rd post through the tyranny of tiny decisions. Bleeding a little bit of money on subscriptions you don't use, constantly running 15 minutes late to every meeting, neglecting the basic maintenance of a friendship.
Right.
Eventually, the framework warns, the delay in the feedback loop closes. It catches up with you. And when it does, it usually presents as a massive, overwhelming deficit of time, or relational goodwill, or financial stability that you cannot easily fix overnight.
Which brings us to what I think is the absolute aha moment of this entire deep dive. We have the full picture now, the 3 posts: health, inner foundation, and stewardship.
Yes.
But the core thesis of the source isn't just a checklist to make sure each post is strong. The true danger isn't necessarily when a single post violently breaks. It's what it does to the others when it merely shifts.
This is where the continuous wire of the fence line visual really pays off. Because these aren't isolated buckets. When one post weakens, the other posts are forced to start carrying weight they were never designed to carry alone. The tension transfers straight down the wire.
That is the aha moment right there. We misdiagnosed the leaning. Let's trace this out. Imagine my inner foundation. My 2nd post is weak.
Okay.
I'm carrying a lot of unexamined anxiety. My ego depletion is maxed out from faking it all day, and my true default under pressure is just sheer panic.
A very common scenario.
Right. So because that internal post is leaning so heavily, the tension physically pulls on my health post. My body gets flooded with cortisol. I stop sleeping. My physical capacity drops. I might go to a doctor complaining about my health post, begging for a sleep aid or a stress relief supplement.
Yes.
But the pressure is actually originating from the internal foundation. The health problem is just a symptom of the transferred weight.
Or we could look at it in reverse, which the author observes is also incredibly common. Let's say your health post is leaning. You haven't recovered from an illness, or you're continually pushing yourself on 4 hours of sleep. You are physically depleted.
Okay.
Because of that structural weakness, your stewardship post starts taking on unnatural weight.
Right, because my prefrontal cortex is offline, so my executive function is gone. I can't manage my life.
Exactly. You are too physiologically tired to make good long-term decisions. So you start ordering expensive takeout every single night, blowing your financial budget. You are too exhausted to invest in your relationship, so you cancel plans and isolate yourself, blowing your relational budget.
Oh man, that is so recognizable.
You might look at your life and think, wow, I am terrible at managing my money and I'm a bad friend. But that's a complete misdiagnosis. Your stewardship post is just splintering because it is frantically trying to hold up a collapsed health post.
Wow. The transferred weight explains why modern life feels so inexplicably heavy for so many people. There's a line in the framework that captures this perfectly. It says, I think that's what a lot of people are living with right now. Not collapse, just leaning.
It is a remarkably accurate description of the modern condition. We are highly functioning. We go to work, we pay our bills, we keep the plate spinning.
We aren't in total collapse.
No, we aren't.
Yeah.
But we are walking around at a 45-degree angle, bracing ourselves against a constant invisible wind, wondering why our muscles are so tired. We are surviving, but we are under immense unnatural tension.
And if we don't understand the mechanics of that tension, we spend our entire lives putting bandages on the wrong posts.
Exactly.
We try to aggressively fix a budget spreadsheet when what we fundamentally need is a week of solid sleep. Or we obsess over optimizing our diet and gym routine when our actual problem is that our internal foundation crumbles into dust the second someone criticizes our work. We treat the pull on the wire instead of fixing a leaning post.
And, the ultimate goal of this framework isn't to make you feel guilty about the lean or to overcomplicate your life.
Right.
It is simply to make the invisible pressure visible. Once you see the interconnected system, you can perform an accurate self-audit. You can identify where the pressure is actually sitting and reinforce the correct structure before it turns into a much larger catastrophic break.
It shifts us away from desperately treating symptoms and moves us into actual preventative maintenance. To summarize for you listening, feeling unstable isn't a mysterious curse you just have to suffer through. It is a structural warning sign.
It's the wire humming under pressure, asking for an inspection.
I love that. And by looking at health, inner belief, and stewardship as an interconnected fence line, you can finally trace the pressure back to its actual source.
And that visibility gives you back your agency. You don't have to just accept the exhaustion as a permanent state of being.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the architecture of a steady life, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over or explore on your own today. Take a mental walk down your own fence line.
It's a great exercise.
Look at your health, your physical capacity, and your allostatic load. Look at your inner foundation, the unvarnished plywood of what you actually default to when the pressure hits. And look at your stewardship, the quiet, daily, technical debt of your habits, your time, and your relationships. If you were to step back and honestly evaluate your fence line right now, which of your 3 posts is secretly carrying the weight for the other 2? And how long can it hold that unnatural tension before the wood starts to splinter?
So when I step back and look at all of this, that's really what I see. Not a bunch of separate problems. Not people just doing bad in one area or another. But a whole life system, quietly leaning in ways that most people don't notice at first. And I say that with respect, because I've been there too. There are seasons where you think you're just dealing with one thing, but really something underneath has been weakening for a while. And you only realize it when the pressure shows up. What I want you to take from this first part is simple. Not everything that feels off is random. Sometimes it's connected. Sometimes it's one post that's been quietly giving way for a long time. And the good thing about that is when you can see it, you can do something about it. You're not stuck guessing anymore. You can start asking better questions. Not just what's wrong with me right now, but where is this actually coming from? And that's where we're going to go next. Because the next video, I want to start showing what it looks like when you begin to actually strengthen those posts on purpose. Not perfectly, not all at once, but intentionally. And I'll just say this. Don't rush past this part, because if you can see the structure even a little bit, it changes how you look at everything else. It will change how you see your health. It will change how you use and see your faith. It changes how you handle what's been put in your hands. So please take this with you. And when you're ready, we'll go into the next part together. Ahui ho, malama pono, and God bless.